Greetings and Assalamu alaikum everybody. I am your host Sara, a research intern from Center for Global and Strategic Studies. And today, on behalf of CGSS and Embassy of Indonesia, I welcome you all for today's session. And I welcome all the participants from the Embassy of Indonesia as well, and especially our guest speaker today, Mr. Ebi Junaedi, who is from the Economic and Business faculty from the University of Indonesia. And today he will be talking about Islamic finance and Indonesian economy. So, sir, I would like you to share your valuable insights and your knowledge with our participants. So please take this session over to you.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Thank you very much for the invitations for presenting the Islamic finance and the Indonesian economy for today. I would really actually at the very beginning about this invitation, I was thinking like discussing about Islamic finance and for the Pakistani are really like teaching the fish how to swim actually, because historically, many of the Pakistani are actually contribute as our founding fathers for Islamic finance and Islamic economics movement, as well as the development for the second generation, third generation, and the first generation of Islamic finance movement and development in the world. So I'm really humbled to be invited, and I would really have to say that if anyone want to add on my presentations or give some more insights about it, I would like to say feel free about this. I will emphasize more on the Indonesian economy and how Islamic finance actually contribute to Indonesian economy. And also, if anyone want to ask questions, please just talk and then raise your hand or ask the question directly. So I would like to go first to a bit of history. Probably many of you are familiar with this picture. Anybody can guess what city was on the left-hand side, on the top? Anybody can guess? Oh, is it muted for the other participants?
If the participant wants to guess, please raise your hand and then proceed with your answers.
Oh, okay. It might take some time for that one. Anyway, I'll go with, if anything, please moderator, if anyone wants to ask question or raise hand, just allow them to talk. Anyway, the left-hand side and the right-hand side on top, it's Baghdad, so splendors. On the left-hand side, bottom, is actually Syria. Damascus was really like the center of civilizations on the time. And also on the right-hand side, it's Spain. The building is still there for the Spain. It's been used for the immigration office, and it's been highly considered as the heritage of the world. So I would like to quote one of the writings from Timur Quran, one of the academics from the US. He said, like a millennium ago, around roughly the 10th century, the Middle East was an economically advanced region of the world, as measured by standard of living, technology, agricultural productivity, literacy, or institutional creativity. Only China, on that time, that might have been even more developed. And around 1200, no city in Christian-governed Europe could match the splendors of Baghdad or Seville. Seville is the one on the right-hand side. So it was so progressive. It was so massively advanced, and nothing can compare to that. But yet, if we look at what we are now in the 20th century, we are so much lag behind compared to the West, and it's been source of the problem in many cases. Abdullah and Chong, for example, they highlight a very important things. They say, like, in contrast, nowadays, the Muslim world has been at a poor state as measured by standard of living, technology, agricultural productivity, literacy, or institutional creativity. So he's mentioning about literacy. So in terms of finance, for instance, the Muslim world has shown a low financial literacy index. Indonesia, for example, the Muslim most populous country in the world, has ranked number 16 out of the 18 Asia Pacific countries surveyed in 2013 Mastercard Financial Literacy Index. If we're concerned about Islamic finance, for example, there is no instrument of Islamic financial literacy that has been considered as a standardized financial literacy that we could consider to be able to see or to measure the Islamic financial literacy of the ummah, of the people. So there is two contrast conditions: the one at the early 1,200 years and the one that we experience nowadays. And of course, it brings some big questions. What has happened to the ummah? What has happened to the Muslim nation? What happened to the economy? Why is the economy has been declining compared to the developed Western world? Many of the Muslim academics, scholars, try to formulate what has happened to the ummah. Some of them would say that there is this legal and institutional stagnations. That means that the Muslim scholars are no longer productive in creating legal and institutional development on the Muslim that was needed. They highlight especially on the failure of the Islamic scholars on producing the basic law, the basic legal for corporations, where he viewed that this is the idea of, or the words from Timur Quran. He viewed that the corporations where an institution can be considered as a human personal being is not recognized in Islam, and that is a source of the lack of development in Islam. And also he also viewed the problems of the heritage divisions. He viewed that when someone was die and he is the owner of a good big business, the rule and regulation where the business to be divided among the was really a source of we become more secularized from the knowledge of the science. So it's not developed altogether hand in hand like in the early age of Islam. Now it's separated totally, and this has caused the lag behind of our development. My previous PhD's supervisor said probably there is this deficiency in Islamic rulings, or the ijtihad. The ijtihad is perceived to be the way for the religion to actually keep up with the new progress, new development, with the cutting edge problems of the ummah. And yet there is this deficiency in the ijtihad that has actually not been able to cope with the progress, with a comprehensive development of the ummah. And another person said that probably the secularizations, it was the fact that we are trying to actually put religion at the masjid, at the holy place, and yet our life itself is actually separated from that. Yes? Any question?
Dr. Ebi, I'm receiving some notes from students. They want you to speak more clearly. Can you please hold your mic a little bit more closer to yourself?
Yeah. Is it better now?
Yes, now it's perfectly all right. Thank you.
Okay. Apologize for that one. This is secularizations is the other one. And we try to find out what would actually, with the conditions like that, uh, there come up some people with very powerful writings. Sheikh Ahmad Khan, Muhammad Abduh, Jamaluddin Al-Afghani, Rashid Rida, Muhammad Iqbal from the 18 and early 19, from the 19 and early 20th century. They come up with a very powerful writings to us about um, uh, the return of the spirit of the religions to the life. So this powerful writing has inspired many people, especially on that time. We know that many of the Muslim region, Muslim area were colonialized by the West. So eventually we know that in the 20th century, we saw a gradual freedom of Muslim lands from the colonialist rulers. That inspired some bright intellectuals of the Muslim world who invited people for the revival of Islam, both at the level of the state and at the level of individuals. The movement was spearheaded by religious scholars such as Hassan al-Banna in Egypt in 1949, Syed Qutb, Muhammad Rafiuddin, Abu A'la Maududi, and then Muhammad Bakir al-Sadar, also Ismail Raji al-Faruq. So all of these writings was actually trying to put Islam on the context of decision making in every single daily life, everydayness. So with this writing, with their thought, come up with the next scholar. The scholars emphasize the need for Islamic economic system and the Islamizations of knowledge. So this is the early reasons why, for example, Triple IT, International Institution of Islamic Thought, was coming up for Islamizations of knowledge. So every knowledge was trying to be asked, how does Islam perceive? How does Islam have a perspective over this knowledge? So their powerful writings inspired many of Muslim scholars, professionals, also economists, who felt the need for developing Islamic economics as a social science. There are many prominent scholars, and many are actually from Pakistan. Muhammad Najatullah Siddiqui, Khurshid Ahmad, Umar Chapra, Anas Zorqa, Monzer Khaf from Turkey, Fahim Khan, Ma'bid Al-Jahri, Murad Jakra from Turkey, Mehmet, only a few of them. We got so many others as our founding fathers for coming up with the idea of Islamic economics and Islamic finance as the early people who try to advocate the birth of the Islamic economics and finance. And then the next generations like Mehmet Asutaif, currently in Durham Business School, Kabir Hassan, currently in university in the US, Munawar Iqbal, Abbas Mirakhar, Zamir Iqbal, and also as Hassan Askari, as the part of the revivalist movement that gave strong impetus to the development of Islamic economics as a social science. So people started hearing the slogan of Islamic economics as a panacea for Islamic ills of capitalism and socialism. So this probably would be the ideal way of how the economics should be conducted within the Muslim world. So with that, we come up with a PIC. The PIC was really the first international conference on Islamic economics that was held in Mecca in Saudi Arabia. It was under the auspices of the King Abdulaziz University, Jeddah. So on that occasion, several hundreds of Muslim scholars, economists, bankers, and academicians gathered and asserted their will for creating Islamic economics as a social science. And this led to the establishment of Center for Research in Islamic Economics. Now it's been renamed as the Institute of Islamic Economics. So I have to give a very high appreciations to many of the Pakistani who actually involved on the very first international conference in 1976 in the Saudi Arabia. Not only that it established the Institute of Islamic Economics, it also established the uh, uh, Islamic Development Bank in 1975. So 3 years after the conference, this IDB, Islamic Development Bank, was established. So the movement for Islamic revival created an impetus for interest-free finance, since interest was perceived as source of economic ills of the capitalist system. And also from the IDB, they also set up a think tank that published many of the early writings on the Islamic economics and finance that is under the Islamic Research and Training Institute, or IRTI, in Saudi Arabia. So these two organizations is the one that actually becoming the major pick of the early Islamic economics and finance movement, if we may say so, as a movement. Now, several of the Indonesian, in the context of the Indonesians, none of us is actually considered, unlike Pakistan, none of us in Indonesia are considered to be the list of the founding fathers of the Islamic economics and finance. So, yet several of our representatives came to join the conference in Mecca, started to build awareness of the possible implementation of Islamic economics and finance, especially Islamic Bank. And then eventually in 1992, if you have a look from 1976 to 1992, it took around about 16 years for us to actually establish our very first Islamic bank, called Bank Muamalat Indonesia. But prior to Bank Muamalat, there was one rural bank based in the university, in one of the best university in Indonesia, in ITB in Bandung, that was being established and tried to actually accommodate the interest-free banking system to their practice. So that was the early history of Islamic economic and finance in Indonesia. Nowadays, what happened with the Islamic economic development and Islamic finance development in Indonesia? In many publications within the year of 2000s, global Islamic economy and industry were focused on the consumptive and the competitive sectors, such as food, drinks, fashion, travels, and financial sectors. The 2020 and 2001 report estimates that the global Muslim expenditure will reach around about 2.202 trillion, which is a growth of 3.2% year on year compared to 2018. So the Muslim expenditure is really something that can be a source of the development of Islamic economics and Islamic finance. So the question is, how much is the services available for conducting this? And then come COVID-19 pandemic, it was estimated to reduce around 8% of the 2.02 trillion by 2020. So something that was not acknowledged before as an industry, Islamic economics and finance industry, eventually come up and unearthed, that's the words that usually being used, unearthed and now becoming around 2 trillion industry. And it was estimated by the 2024, we will be expected to be around 2.4 trillion with a cumulative average growth rate of around about 3.1% for 5 years. So that was in the global Islamic economics and finance forecast about what would happen and how this industry would be compared to the conventional industry. In Indonesia, if we have a look at the overall ranking, we saw that the reports, many reports is actually telling that Indonesia ranking is improving. For example, for the global Islamic economy indicators score rank, we are number 4, just under Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. Unfortunately, Pakistan 21 was number 4. Prior to that, it was number 5. The increase from number 5 to number 4 was attributed to the awareness of the people that increased significantly about the existence of Islamic economics and finance. And then on the top score rank by sector, we saw that on the halal food, Indonesia was actually number 4. Unfortunately, from Singapore, for example, it's not a Muslim majority country, but yet they are on the halal. We don't see Islamic finance. We are number 6 only. Pakistan is number 8. On the Muslim friendly travel, we are number 6. Many of other country that was not actually Muslim majority country or many Muslim country like Thailand, they are actually number 4 ahead of Indonesia. I don't see Pakistan in the top 10. For modest patient, Indonesia was number 3. Although Pakistan is producing a lot on patients, but for modest patients, Pakistan was not on the top 10. Pharmaceutical and cosmetic, Indonesia was never been in the top 10 before. We are actually moving to number 6 simply because of the new commitment by the government, especially on the cosmetic area. And also the birth of a new halal cosmetic that was being launched several years ago, when it becomes a major player in the cosmetic industry in our country. For the media and creations, Indonesia was never been in the top 10 before. 2020, we are for the first time we include in the top 10 due to many of the media realized that Islamic economics and finance need to be put in their list of issues that they need to address. So although we are number 5 under United Kingdom, Singapore, Malaysia, and UAE for media and recreations. So looking at what happened in the 2020 and the 2021, some of the index has been issued already. Overall, Indonesia ranking is improving. As I mentioned before, one of the reasons for increasing rank was due to the increasing awareness in all of the sector that we had. Indonesia also raised for 47 rank in the media and recreations. As I've told you before, we were not in the top 10 before at all. Now we are moving to the number 5 on that area. Number 19, moving 19 rank in the pharmacy and cosmetic indicator. In terms of the food sector, Indonesia raised up to around 8 ranks before, compared to before. This is due to our export to OIC countries. Now, in Islamic finance, Indonesia is experiencing numbers of issuance of sukuk as well as Sharia funding. Early of this year, in 2021, the 1st of February, 3 big government banks actually merged to create the biggest Islamic bank in Indonesia, and it's currently number 6 compared to other conventional banks in Indonesia. So the awareness and demand for Sharia finance is quite strong. Moreover, I have to say that the government is currently at the very strongest positions. We see a very strong, the strongest commitment that we have ever seen. We've never seen before from the government side. So in terms of activities and fact publications of research in Islamic economics fields, Indonesia ranks 2nd in the world. Malaysia is number 14 that effectively implemented in October 2019. So there is 5 years since the enactment of the law that require halal certification for all halal products. So these include halal food, pharmacy, and cosmetics, and etc. I put etc. in there because it's very interesting that some of other goods that people never thought it will be subject to halal certification come up with a request to the Majelis Ulama Indonesia to get halal certification. For example, fridge or refrigerator. Some of the companies shop in this case come to the Majelis Ulama Indonesia wanted to get halal certifications. Their concern was that fridge is a place where people keep their food fresh. So making sure that any of the elements within that within the fridge are halal or halal certified is important to make sure that the customer feels secure about it. But it create backlash for some cases because the way some of the advertisement was being brought is making as if other fridge or other goods are not halal because they're not halal certificated. It also create another backlash, another big issues back in our country when one of the modest fashion producer, they produced the hijab for the Muslimah, for the female, and they got halal certification from the Majelis Ulama Indonesia, and they make an advertisement again, making as if they are the only halal, and when it's not certified halal, is considered to be haram. And then this also has created a backlash. The media communications of the company eventually apologized for what has happened. But the concern over halal is valid, is genuine. That many of the Indonesians were requested certifications over the products that was actually being marketed within our society, within the Indonesian community. So halal certifications that was effectively required. It's not only required; it's an obligation for every company that produce halal product, that put halal on their products, to be certified by the Majelis Ulama Indonesia. Prior to that, there was no of this. Some of the company just put the halal writing in Arabic and expecting people to agree or to believe on that. But many of them are not actually certified or being audited by the Majelis Ulama Indonesia. So halal certification is a way for the Majelis Ulama to make sure that the people are, when it is really halal, it is halal indeed on the whole process of the production. If we go to the Islamic finance landscape, the National Islamic Finance Report as for December 2020, I'm sorry that some of the writings was really in still in Bahasa Indonesia. For example, on this one, this is on Sharia Bank. The Sharia Bank was keep actually increasing in terms of the asset. We can have a look that within just 4 years, we are actually almost doubling the number from 365 trillion rupiah, becoming 608 trillion rupiah just within 4 years of the years. And also the non-banking finance increased not as much, but it's keep increasing from 88.67 to 106 trillion rupiah. On the case of the Sharia stock, we are increasing from 493 439 trillion rupiah into 1,000 trillion rupiah, over 1,000 trillion rupiah. So overall, we saw that the growth of our Islamic finance is actually higher compared to the conventional. On average, we are actually increasing for around about 23% on the Islamic finance. So as per December 2020, Indonesia total Islamic finance asset, excluding the Sharia compliant stock, is around 1,802 trillion rupiah, or around about 127 billion USD. Sorry, it's supposed to be billion, not million. That's in Bahasa Indonesia. And yet, if we have a look at this, it's great in terms of growth. It's tremendously good. But if you have a look at the pie chart here, we can see that the total Islamic finance in Indonesia is less than 10% compared to the conventional. So at one side, it tells us that there is with more than 88% of the population are Muslim. How could the Islamic finance is actually so much less compared to the percentage of the populations? So if we have a look at the more details about the Islamic insurance, we know that Islamic banking, it grows, as I mentioned to you before, it was only around 365 trillion before it goes into 608, almost double the previous number within just 4 years. The insurance is very slow, although it increased by around 25%, but as in many cases, even conventional insurance is is decreasing. In fact, either non-financial institutions is actually increasing quite significantly, around 150%. The sukuk, corporate sukuk, is actually increasing. So many corporations now, for funding, they issue sukuk to the market. The government sukuk is increasing more than doubles. So government is increasing more of their financing through sukuk or Islamic bonds. So in terms of the total asset, as I mentioned just now, in banking only, we are only 6.5%. This 6.5% was actually an increase for the last, from the first Islamic bank in Indonesia. So it's around about 40, it's been 40 years since the first establishment. We can only get a market share of 6.5%. The capital market is at 17.25% compared to the conventional. Non-banking institutions is even lower, only 4.43%. So in average, in total, we are only less than 10%. Something wrong with the Muslim populations if we compare the percentage of the population with the percentage of the Islamic finance market share within the Indonesia Islamic finance landscape. So, and yet we are actually seeing that the growth will go even further, bigger in the future. This is our estimation. The Muslim populations in 2015 is around 161 million. Expectedly by 2025, we will have 184 million Muslim populations. And if we have a look, the majority will be on the middle upper income. Around 57.6% will be in the upper income. Our high affluence is expectedly to grow 3 times, almost 3 times compared to 2015. And we expect that the poor lower middle income will be reduced by around 50% to only 27.9% by 2025. So that's the current conditions of the Muslim adult populations. If we have a look at what are their works, it's interesting that currently in 2015, the latest survey that we got, majority of our Muslim worker is actually working in the private company. Only 41% is self-employed, and it's going to reduce, we expect, by 2025 to only 28%, and majority will still keep working in the private sector, around 65% we estimate. And this is the locomotive for creating many of the middle upper class by 2021. So we saw that Indonesia has the largest Muslim population with strong preference on Sharia compliance. This is also subject to questions, actually, by saying that strong preference on Sharia compliance. Many of the research also divide the Muslim into several level of degree of compliance to the Sharia. So they put at least 3 types of the Muslim. The first type is who are strongly prefer the Sharia compliance products. So at any cost, they want to only consume or only relate themselves to the Sharia compliance products. So this is the tap market of the Sharia compliance institution or services or products. The second type of the Muslim, they said, is those who are rational Muslim. They are not putting Sharia compliance as the major or the main reasons why they want to do or what they want to consume or what they want to buy or get services. So, and the third one is the Muslim that doesn't really care to some extent, that they don't want to relate themselves to the Sharia compliance products. So the challenge is really education. The challenge is really on how to actually make them literate on the Islamic economics and finance. It is estimated by 2025, Indonesia will have 184 million adult Muslim populations. We saw that the middle upper Muslim population will grow the fastest. And providing this, we can say that there is a huge potential for institutions providing Sharia compliant products and services by 2025. Now, many of us are actually concerned about the digital world, right? How does the Islamic economics and finance actually can benefit from the digital world? This is a report from January 2021 by Hootsuite. The total population of the world is expected to be 7.83 billion. Urbanizations, people live in urban, is around 56.4%. And the unique mobile phone users is almost 100% of those. 66.6% is actually saying that it doesn't cover only people in urban, but it also goes into villages and a remote area. And internet users is above, slightly lower than 60% of the population will have access to the internet. And also, don't forget the effect of social media. So social media users is expected to be around 53.6% populations, or around 4.2 billion of the populations. So looking at this, we can see that there is so much improvement that we can do by using the digital world. Here is the internet users versus total populations. If we have a look, in the case of Indonesia, we got almost 70% of the of the people are actually having internet. This is for Southeastern Asia. More or less, the number is the same for Indonesia. So number of internet users in reach global compared to the total population is at this much. Of course, we can see that the Northern American is around 90%, Western Europe is even higher, 93%, and Northern Europe is around 96%. So knowing that many of those people who got the internet connections, but probably will have another data so that they are not included in the financial sector. So financial exclusion were actually higher compared to the internet user in this case. We saw that there is huge possibility of possible improvement on using digital to make people included into the financial sector. For the case of Indonesia, Hotsuite come up with this number. Our total population is almost 300 million. 57% of our population are living in urban. Mobile connection, interestingly, we got more mobile connections compared to the population. That means every one out of 4 people in Indonesia are having more than one mobile connections on average. So knowing about this and knowing that almost 74% of our populations is actually having internet access within their mobile phone, that actually allow us to project that probably this is the way to move forward. And Indonesia is a massive social media users. Around 62% of our populations are actually active social media users. Probably you might aware as well when the Indonesian badminton team in UK was being cancelled by the committee. The Indonesians social media users just go into their official social media and show that their disagreement and that they are unhappy about the decisions that the badminton committee on that time in UK, in England, in all England competitions was made, and it just stormed all the social media to the level that the social media eventually being closed. That's the negative effect though, but yet it just shows that how active the community or the people in the social media in Indonesia. So and yet we saw that annual digital growth in population is only 1.1% increase for the last 1 year, although we know that during the pandemic is highly increased supposedly, but the internet connections, the internet users is increasing by more than 15%, especially because of the school. We know that offline school has been stopped. Teaching is now online. Everything was conducted online, so many of the populations are actually being forced to have internet connections. And at the same time, there's an increase of 6.3% for the last 1 year for active social media users, both not only Facebook and Twitter, but also Instagram, TikTok, and some other social media. So this is what we say, what I said just now, financial inclusion factors. A percentage of the population age 15 plus that reports owning or using each financial product or services. We can see that only less than 49% people have an account in a financial institution. So there are many rooms of improvement. Credit cards only 2.4%. Mobile money account is even less, 3.1%. Making online purchase or pay bills online is only 11.2%. Percentage of women with a credit card is only 1.9%, and men with a credit card is higher at 3.1%. But percentage of women doing online transaction is much higher compared to the men. This is of course understandable. The mother are the one who do the shopping, right? So we got almost 13% for the women, but much less than 10% for the men. So so there is room for improvement, because at the same time, many of financial decision making in a family was actually being made by the woman. So knowing that woman has been exposed to online transactions, paying bills and purchases online, is actually a way to tap the financial inclusions within Indonesia. So what are the main challenges on Islamic economics and finance in Indonesia? You saw just now that I was so optimistic, showing that in terms of rank, Indonesia was ranked always on the top 10 on many of the occasions. We got the first on the destinations for Muslim tourism. We got the number 4 for the global Islamic economy index, etc., etc. And yet, domestically, we saw that in terms of the percentage, in terms of the market share compared to the conventional, both on the banking, on the Islamic capital market, on the non-banking financial services or institutions, we are way behind. So the very biggest challenge is really the awareness. We saw that there is a low level of Islamic financial literacy. Our financial institutions, financial supervision institutions predict that our Islamic financial literacy is only 8.93%. So out of 100 people, only around 9 people that has a a good understanding on Islamic finance. The central bank is more optimistic. It's around 16.3%. So out of 100 people, 16 people will have a good understanding. So this is why, knowing that in terms of percentage, we are lack of in terms of market share on the finance, we are around about 10%. So it reflects that our financial literacy is actually reflecting the share of our Islamic finance if we want to compare it with the conventional finance. So that's why we are called as the sleeping giant. Many people are actually Muslim, got the assets, got the ability to actually use this to mobilize the financial market, and yet they don't they're not literate, they're not having the willingness, they're not having the knowledge to actually contribute to the Islamic finance and economics. That's on the awareness. The second thing is financial inclusions. Our national financial inclusion is actually at the 76.10%. So we can say that from 100 people, 76 people are actually being included into the financial system in Indonesia, like having a bank account or able to borrow money from the financial institutions. But the Sharia financial inclusion is very low, it's 9.1%. That means that many people are actually included within the conventional financial system, but they don't want to also include into the Sharia financial inclusions. We are now in a research currently to find out why these things to be happened. Our estimate was our hypothesis was really firstly because the knowledge, the financial awareness, financial literacy just now, but also with there's tendency that the low quality services that was actually given by the financial institution, the Sharia financial institution, if we compare it with the conventional financial institutions. So they're not as performed as the conventional system. And the third thing is probably the the switching costs, the cost that the the one who want to perform Sharia transactions that need to bear when they want to interact or do their financial needs is much higher compared to if they want to actually use conventional. This is truly happen if, for example, if you want to have a loan on the housing, the margin that was charged by the Sharia finance institution is higher compared to the interest that was charged by the conventional bank, for example. Another one that can be considered as a main challenge on Islamic economics and finance in Indonesia is our human resource. Sorry, it's still in Bahasa for that, King. It's human resource. As we all know that if you want to be an expert in Islamic economics and finance, that means that you are not only expert in economics or finance, but you are also required to be expert in the fiqh area, in the Islamic law. And these two area require two different skills, abilities, and not many people are well trained in that in both manners. I have to be honest that I'm not expert on fiqh. My background is at the master and undergrad degree was conventional economics, conventional finance, and it was just being in touch into Islamic economics and finance after the case of PhDs. So afterward, we in the case of Indonesia, we got 750 undergraduate study programs all over Indonesia for Islamic economics, finance, and banking. This is huge. I mean, like if you combine all the study programs on Islamic economics, finance, and banking all in the world, except Indonesia, it won't go up until this number. So it's larger compared to the whole world. And yet the question is, are they going to be able to be served into the industry, the Islamic economics and finance industry? Probably for some of you who are active in LinkedIn, for example, and linked to the Islamic finance network, you probably know about what was happening around 2 weeks ago. One of the former advisor of the Saudi Arabian government, especially on the Islamic development and finance area, he was mentioning that there is no way people from the Islamic economics and finance background as their study could go into the industry because the industry is not moving, the industry is not growing enough to actually accommodate them to be part of the industry employee, for example. So another problem that we have in Indonesia is the certification of professionals that was not there. I mean, like back in the early 90s and 2000s, many of the Indonesian bankers was actually moved to the Islamic, to the Sharia banking sector. And in some cases, when they move, they're not certified, they're not having enough training, enough knowledge to actually enable them to be an upfront for the Islamic economics and finance. So this has created problems in many cases. And another one is regulation and institutionalizations is a big problem. For example, the government employee, they are required to open a bank for the payroll on the conventional. It was just today that there is this moral suasions by the Ministry of state-owned enterprises that he, with the approval of the Vice President, requests to government officer as well as state-owned enterprises to make Sharia account as their payroll account. So we saw that with this regulation, new moral suasions, we expect that the Islamic economics and finance will be more having more market share compared to what we currently have. The next one is I'm going to talk a bit about the Islamic social finance. We're talking about zakah, infak, and sadaqah in Indonesia. I just want to highlight that it was estimated that we have a 3% of our GDP as an estimated potential of our zakah collection. And yet, if you have a look, the realized collection was only 3.7% of its potential. We are quite happy if you have a look at the growth of the collections. The growth of collection was on average, it's around 35.4% annually. It's so good news about it. But yet, if we compare to the whole story of the potential in Indonesia, which actually equal to the 3% of the GDP, it's very much a big concern because it's only 3.7% of its potential. And if we have a look at the registered zakah institutions, we saw that the zakah institution is actually going down from 2018 to 2019, from 617 to only 572 registered zakah institutions. Of course, there are many other zakah institutions that was not registered to the Ministry of Religious Affairs that play a role as well to the government. And also don't forget that there are estimated traditionally managed zakah and infak and sadaqah collection, which is around about 50 trillion a year, or around about 0.3% of the GDP in Indonesia. But I have to say that, in my humble opinion, this needs to be maintained because it's a source of social capital within the society, especially the Muslim, where the inequality are quite strong within that region. So another one is Wakaf. This is something that I really personally want to highlight because many of the researchers, many of the historians believe that Wakaf is very vital for the Muslim society. It is so vital to the extent that Hudson, American historian from Chicago University, he postulated that the successes and the failures of the economy of the Muslim world will be depending on the efficiency of Wakaf. So if you have a look now, in terms of percentage of the Islamic finance, almost 80% of the Islamic finance is actually on banking, Islamic banking, not on the Wakaf. Why does those things happen? It becomes an issue in many conferences. Some of the contrasts I just want to highlight. One of the researchers in Gaudesi in Oxford, he said that actually Wakaf is the source of the development of charitable trust in the Western world. Oxford, Cambridge, Durham, for example, academic institution with college system in the UK, which actually this system is actually mimicking the madrasah system that was happening in the Middle East. And also Timur Quran say that Wakaf was the main vehicle for financing both commercial as well as public ventures, a role that has been replaced by banks and other financial institutions. So before we have banks, before we have stock exchange, etc., Wakaf is this main vehicle for financing all those things. Before we have Ministry of Finance, Wakaf is the one that take the lead on implementing it. And yet Wakaf was not developed so good in many countries. This is the critics from Alawi. He's now the Ministry of Finance in Iraq. He said that Wakaf is an essential element of Islamic economy, weaving as it were religious obligation with a strong sense of social justice and moral responsibility. It is ironic that contemporary reformers want to promote civil society institutions when authentic Islamic models, which is wakaf, that has been honed over centuries of service has been systematically undermined and destroyed. How about Indonesia? Indonesia realized eventually that wakaf is very important. Back 3 months ago, in the 25th January 2021, our president launched the national movement of cash wakaf. It was attended by the vice president, Ministry of Finance, and all other high-level government officers to actually make this as a national movement. We expect that the wakaf will be collected a lot. Our current wakaf land is around about 4 times the size of Singapore. But so far it's been used for the masjid, for the musalla, for the madrasah, for the school, and for the cemetery. So there's a tendency towards the government to actually utilize it to a more commercial purposes. We were expecting to actually get 180 trillion annually on the potential wakaf. This is equal to around about 18%, 20% of the national budget, and yet for the last 5 years, the number is only 819 billion only, so very tiny compared to the potential. So there are rooms for improvement, and yet we're still trying to figure out what things that cause the realized collection way smaller compared to the potential of the wakaf. I think I've talked more than 1 hour, more than what I expect. I would like to return it back to the moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ebi. Now we will move to our interactive sessions, and all those participants who want to ask questions from our guests, please do raise your hands. Okay, we have a question, and I'm going to unmute our participant. So here we go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello.
We can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. Please ask a
Yes,
question.
sir. You told in your presentation that since October 2019, there was felt the need to implement the halal certification for all halal products. Sir, I could not understand clearly. Before it, there were non-halal products in Indonesia. You had to need to implement this thing, the halal certification. Got my point? Got my question? Hello.
Yes, yes, yes,
Sir,
Saeed.
sir, second is, sir, another question from my side, please.
Okay, yes, please.
Sir, in 1992, first Islamic Bank was created in Indonesia.
Yeah,
Sir, there
yeah.
has been a very sensitive issue in either in Islamic world of interest-based system in banking system. So, sir, have you ever applied some rule that you had to either alleviate interest system from your Islamic banking in Indonesia, or still there exists something of interest based in Islamic banking in Indonesia?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Sir, my question.
For the second question, yeah.
Yes, yes. I asked. There has been a very sensitive, very sensitive issue of interest-based system, as there are banks which are based on interest mostly. These are claimed by scholars. So in Indonesia, does it exist, or it is free from interest system, your banking system?
Okay, okay. Thank you, Said. Can I directly answer the question, please?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, go to the first questions. How could there is this halal certifications regulations back in 2014 that um, actively implemented eventually in 2019? Yes, there are cases where um, haram product claim to be halal, for example. Is there haram product in Indonesia? Yes, there are, of course. Um, so halal certifications is actually, the regulation was actually coming up from the Ummah to actually make sure that every single product that claimed to be halal was really certified. What certification mean is that the Majlis Ulama will review and audit all the process so that when they are actually put that sign in their products that they are halal, it is truly halal. So what are those products that has been in the market that people just realize is haram? For example, back in the early 90s, there are soaps that that was turned out to be not halal. There are toothpaste, for example, and some other things. We still have some of the products that in the market and they don't have halal certifications, and still we got some customers, that some Muslim customer and both non-Muslim customer as well, to that want to purchase that products. So halal certifications is a need for the Muslim to actually make sure that when the product was labeled halal on their what we call it, packaging, or on their to the community, they are truly halal. So there is this kind of process that was done by the Majlis Ulama Indonesia to make sure about it. So secondly, on your second question, the first Islamic bank in Indonesia was established in 1992. Is there any interest banking system in Indonesia? Of course. Actually, there are 93%, 93.18% of our banking system in terms of assets are actually based on interest banking system. The big bank, if you have a look at 10 biggest bank in Indonesia, there are only one Islamic bank that goes there. It's the result of the government commitment back in February to merge three state-owned Islamic bank into one, into what we call as Bank Syariah Indonesia. So to be honest, the interest banking system is still the dominant player in Indonesia. If we talk about the asset, as I mentioned just now, it's only less than 7% of our banking system that was actually coming up from the Islamic bank. How could that happen? Well, as I mentioned just now, first, the literacy is still one thing that we need to increase. Many of the Muslims are not realize that, for example, interest is forbidden in Islam. Although we know that back several years ago, the Majlis Ulama Indonesia has issued a fatwa that interest is part of the riba, and riba is haram. And yet, that doesn't mean that because we're not an Islamic countries, we are multicultural, multi-religious. So dual banking system is implemented in our country. So for the Muslim, they have freedom to choose whether they want to have a Sharia account or conventional account. But yet we realize that, as I mentioned just now, that many of the government officer, for example, or government officer in the state-owned enterprises, they are required to have a payroll account in the conventional before, and now with the new regulations, not new regulations, not regulation in the way that it can be enforced, but a new moral suasions to allow them to actually go into the Islamic account is allowed per today by the Ministry of State-owned Enterprises. That was issued. The regulation was issued as of today by the minister, and we expect that this will actually increase the role of Islamic banking and Islamic finance in our country. Probably that can I can mention to you, Said. I can answer you. If you have any questions or if you want to add some more, please feel free.
Okay, I think that's we had enough questions for today, and with
Okay.
this I should like to, yes, with this I should like to conclude our session. I'm very thankful to Dr. Ebi Junaedi for joining us today and sharing his valuable insights. Furthermore, I'm very thankful to all the participants from different platforms for joining us today. Thank you very much. Have a good day, Allah Hafiz.